Hey, what's going on, everyone? And welcome to episode 41 of the Alec Walt Show. I'm your host, Alec Walt, alongside another very special guest. And today, we're talking about the Washington football team. Washington last year won the NFC East. Could they repeat as division champions? Joining us today to talk about all things Washington and more is Scott Jackson, Washington's pregame and postgame radio broadcaster. Scott, what's going on, man? I appreciate you joining me.
Hey, no problem, Alec. Looking forward to it. How you doing?
Good. So the Washington football team recently announced Ryan Fitzpatrick as its starting quarterback. Not much surprise there, but what have you seen from Fitz here at camp and in the preseason, and how confident are you with him as Washington's quarterback?
Well, I think he's going to be an upgrade over the situation they had last year with, obviously a one-legged Alex Smith for most of the year. Although he did do some amazing things considering where he came from. Dwayne Haskins at the beginning of the year after the pretty decent start, and then he just really never progressed at all. And then Kyle Allen played for a little bit, got hurt. Taylor Heinicke obviously had to finish the season off. I think Fitzpatrick presents a guy who obviously has played a lot of games. He has been a capable starter in the past in other places and reliever. He'll take more chances, maybe sometime to his detriment. I think that's the main thing they got to coach into him, which is, hey, it's okay to take chances, but you got to know when the right times are, right? If you're leading a game, be smart. Don't necessarily need to do all the Fitz magic stuff, right? We need to play intelligent football because they have a really good defense here that is not going to need a ton of support from the offense, but they're going to need something more than they had last year. I think you got an opportunity for more chunk plays. He's certainly a guy who can play off schedule. And and he's got leadership ability. He's got that intangible, that it factor, whatever. His teammates seem to love him wherever he is. You probably could argue Miami would have made it to the playoffs if they had not pulled him last year in favor of Tua, which, you can kind of understand why they wanted to see Tua on the field, because he's the future, but it certainly hurt their chances in the short term to make the playoffs, and they did that because he wasn't ready. So I think there's some good possibilities for Fitzpatrick. Not surprised he was named the starter when they went out and got him on the 1-year deal at a bargain. I think at $7 million or whatever the base is. I knew he was going to be the starter. They said there'd be competition, but it really never developed between him and Taylor Heinicke. From the preseason games, Fitz was always with the ones. Look, the offense looks a little rusty at times. They didn't show a lot in the preseason. They also didn't have Curtis Samuel, who was a big free agent they brought over from Carolina. We won't really know his status, I don't think, until, Washington has to put out an injury report next week before week 1. I would think he's pretty close to being ready. Otherwise, I don't think he would have been placed in the 53-man roster to get, and taken off the PUP list when he was. So I imagine that, once he gets in the mix with him and McLaurin, that's certainly a better wide receiver 1-2 punch than they had last year. Gibson's coming into year 2. So I think there's a lot of good things around Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's just got to obviously, manage the game and, take his shots when the opportunity rises.
So you mentioned Antonio Gibson, someone who stepped up last year in his rookie season, now expected to be the number 1 back in Washington. Scott, what are your expectations for Gibson here in year 2?
Well, if he's healthy, I think sky's the limit for him. He's a excellent receiving back. Obviously, the receiver background in college has served him well. They really didn't use him as much as a receiver as I thought they might last year. I think there's more of that in the playbook. He had a turf toe injury late in the season, kind of really, debilitated him and his ability to finish out the year and what they could do in the playoffs. It was really tough. He was really out there more as a decoy. He wasn't much of a threat. You see him run up the sidelines a lot. But, for the little bit we've seen of him in the preseason, he looked like he's completely healthy. I would suspect that he's going to be better getting his pads lower. Sometimes he runs a little too upright. Again, not a natural running back, but he's still learning the position. So I'm excited for Gibson. I think he could have a really, really good year for them. It'd be very productive. He's going to get more short yardage opportunities now that Marion Barber's not on the roster anymore. So that's going to be his job, I would imagine. Jarrett Patterson, the rookie out of Buffalo, really showed well in the preseason. Obviously, made the final 53. He's probably going to have somewhat of a role at some point. And I think, we're going to still see plenty of J.D. McKissick especially on third downs and in passing situations.
So you mentioned Curtis Samuel, not someone you've seen really too much here, dealing with an injury at camp, but how is he going to fit in this offense? Same with someone like Adam Humphries, who everywhere he's gone, he's been that slot receiver who seems to always be open.
Yeah, look, Humphries and Fitzpatrick, you see that at practice. You've seen it a little bit in the preseason. They've got a relationship from back in Tampa. There is definitely a comfort level there. What we haven't really seen is Fitzpatrick throw to, Samuel, because we have had no, visual of it because he's been on the PUP list and was, only doing teams, wasn't doing any team drills when he came back, in terms of what the media was able to see. I would imagine a lot of stuff is ramping up now. The practices are closed, and that's where their chemistry is going to develop, and from what they did in the OTAs together. But look, he knows his offense better than everybody because he played in Scott Turner's offense in Carolina, and obviously they were smart to go after somebody they knew and that would fit in. He's really good friends with Terry McLaurin. A lot of times when free agents come in, especially in Washington, this has happened in the past. They'll get a guy, they'll pay him a lot of money. There's some bad feelings in the locker room, like, why are they paying this guy? They're not paying their own. This guy doesn't fit in our offense. He plays this way, and we're using him that way. But here's a guy who played in the offense. They know him. They know what his personality is, his character's about. He's good buddies with the team's top receiver. So it seems like it could be a seamless transition. But again, we haven't seen it. So I'm very curious, to see. I would imagine they're going to move him all over the place. I would think jet sweeps. He'll carry the ball at times. So he'll do some things. They'll put him in motion a lot. I mean, I think they're going to do a lot of things to, confuse the defense. They were very, very vanilla in the preseason. And I think it's probably, Scott Turner's probably chomping at the bit to try to do some of these things he had envisioned in the offseason when they got Curtis Samuel here and, brought in a veteran like Fitzpatrick, but they really just haven't been able to show it yet.
One guy who kind of came out of nowhere last year for the Washington football team is Logan Thomas. How do you see him following up his breakout season?
Look, he was really good in the preseason. Like every day in practice, he'd make a play, and he shows that big size of his. Guy, it's amazing that he was a quarterback. The size of him, he's so big. But he was a quarterback, obviously Virginia Tech quarterback when he first got in the NFL, but transitioned very nicely here into a tight end and had a breakout year last year. And I think they believe he can add to it. Coming up this season, him and Fitzpatrick made some plays together in the preseason. I think like I said, people saw him a lot when the open practices were going on at training camp. You saw the connection there, and he looks very comfortable. Guys constantly learning. Him and Fitzpatrick have a good relationship already. As a former quarterback, Logan's also got a big family like Fitz does. So they have a lot of little off the field friendship going. They've both talked about. So I think that's interesting. But yeah, man, I think he's going to be your guy. Help him move the chains. He's a big red zone target. Just another, going to add to what he did last year. And, the main thing for him is, just to get better as a blocker. I think that was really maybe the thing that was, not as consistent as you'd like from him. But, that's what he's got to get better at, too, at the times when he's out there. Not just be a good receiver, but also be able to, be all-around tight end, that can also block for you.
When you talk about blocking, Washington's very strong on the interior. You drafted Samuel Cosme, Charles Leno are your two tackles. How confident are you in that duo right there? Because they're going to have to block a lot here for Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Well, Cosme looked really solid in the preseason. He's certainly, got a good pedigree coming out of Texas. Charles Leno, I mean, I'll be honest, he had kind of underwhelming preseason from the little bit of work that he got. But yet the Bears are still, holding a candle for him. They haven't figured it out, since they cut him. So it's kind of weird to me because from what I've seen of him, I was like, wow, is this guy really the starting left tackle? They have a guy, Cornelius Lucas, who played at times last year there, played very well. I can play and also can play the right side. I was wondering if Lucas may have a shot at it, but there was really, again, never any competition there. They got Sadiq Charles, who they drafted at LSU in the 4th round, who everybody thought was going to be the replacement for Trent Williams. But look, they haven't found a replacement for Trent Williams. Breaking news there. And you kind of knew that was going to be a tough one to replace when they did trade him finally. Of course, he didn't play the year before anyway. But it's going to be interesting. And I think Leno, again, I'm just hoping he's one of these guys that's a veteran, that he needs the games to matter to kind of show who he is. But yeah, that left side, it was not spectacular, quite frankly, in the preseason. The right side was much better with Sheriff and Cosme, the rookie. And, they've got to be good there. And if they want to be a team that can run the ball and push people around, that both sides of the line got to be a little bit more consistent and gel together. They do have, they coach them well. They have a very good system. Ron Rivera and Carolina always have good offensive lines, and they tend to get better. So, I think they feel good about the people they have there, and they're just going to have to roll with this first combination. And, again, Leno, I think, is going to definitely be the guy at left to start the season, but we'll see if he shows to be the guy for the full season, because they do have other options if he does not play well.
So moving on to the other side of the football, Chase Young, one of the most dominant players already in his rookie season. What's that next step for Young here in year 2?
I think just being, even more of an impact player. I mean, his pressure numbers were very good. He draws a lot of attention. did last year. To make more impact plays is really the thing for him. And sometimes, like a lot of guys who are quarterback, pass rushers, guys who really like to get out the quarterback, get burned on some of the play action and stuff like that and bootlegs. But Chase is pretty smart. He didn't really fall. I mean, it was interesting because Ryan Kerrigan for years with this team would just bite on the boots constantly. People are like, oh my goodness, how did he do that again? But like Chase Young kind of picked up on that quickly as a young player here, as a rookie. And I just think sky's the limit for this guy. He just keeps working hard and keep him getting better. And I think there's no question Montez Sweat's big season was a byproduct of having Chase Young on the other side. And Sweat can help Young too. I mean, that's the same thing. Sweat had a really nice second year when they finally used him correctly. I think the previous regime had no clue how to use him, which was kind of hard to believe until like the last 4 weeks of the season. They let him go after the quarterback, which is what he should have been doing. He was a terrific pass rusher at Mississippi State. So between him and Young, I mean, that's a really good combination coming off the ends. And the interior is pretty damn solid too. So I mean, it's the front four or front five at times they play, sometimes 5 down linemen is really clearly the strength of this team, and is going to have to be the reason why they probably win games early when this offense kind of finds their footing.
So where do you think this defense ranks overall in the NFL?
Yeah, it's always hard to say. Like, here's what I know. They'll give up some yardage. You can run on them. Well, at least you could last year. The linebacker position is still very iffy. Even with Jamin Davis, I'm curious to see how they use him in week 1. He struggled as the Mike linebacker in preseason, but they wanted to throw a lot of information at him and get him used to making the calls. We'll be interested to see if they don't move him, to one of the outside positions when the games start to count here, which would be maybe more so he could play more free and use that speed of his. But at times last year they would put 5 down linemen in there to get that extra beef out there to slow down teams' running attack. And they also have guys that are good pass rushers from the interior, like Jonathan Allen and Matt Ioannidis, who's back healthy, is terrific at rushing the passer. Jerron Payne can rush the passer too from the interior. So, can they be a top 10 defense? Certainly. Are they a top 5 defense? They have the potential to do all that stuff. It's really, to me, how do they play the run? Can they take the ball away? They've got some guys obviously in the back end that are not afraid to take some chances. In the secondary, Kendall Fuller's always been good at a good ball hawk and a very good cover guy. They bring in, Jackson, who, played in mostly man coverage in Cincinnati, William Jackson, and now he's going to be at, maybe Washington played a lot of zone last year, but maybe it's because they're personnel. So that's what's going to be interesting to see how he fits in. And if he fits in immediately right away, Landon Collins is back healthy. He's looked amazing coming off an Achilles injury. But quite frankly, before his injury, he really did not play great since coming over from the Giants. But he was actually having, a pretty good couple games, like it seemed to be coming into his own in this Jack Del Rio defense. So that's going to be interesting to watch. But yeah, I mean, I think they should feel like they can be the best defense or among the best defenses in the league, is that yardage wise and what have you. But one of the things, like, they would give up yards at times last year, Alec, but like they were bend, don't break. They would, like, you could move the ball on them, but you weren't getting in the end zone when you got down there. And you saw a lot of that in the preseason as well. And then as the year went on, the takeaways started rolling for them. The first game against the Eagles, they pretty much set Carson Wentz's season off into a spiral with the way they got after him, sacking him. I think it was like 9 times and picked him off, 3 times, and he had fumbled it once as well. But, there was also some other games where they didn't get those kind of takeaways, those, as much pressure, or at least not the sack numbers. So they should feel like they could be one of the top defenses in the league. And, with the amount of money they've invested in that defensive line, they probably should be.
With what you've seen from Washington this preseason, who do you think is a surprise breakout candidate?
Surprise breakout candidate. That's a good question. I would say, I don't know if it's a surprise anymore, but if something were to happen to Antonio Gibson, I think Jared Patterson would be your starting running back. And I don't think they would think twice about it. I think the undrafted rookie out of Buffalo would come in and he could be a stud as a rookie. I really do. I think he's that good. He's that natural of a runner. He's built like a running back. He played at a high level in college. I don't know why he didn't go drafted. I mean, I just think, people overthink this stuff with running backs sometimes, and maybe they just feel like there's so many of them, they don't need them. But I would say, in terms of a quote breakout candidate, he would be one of your guys there. Benjamin St-Juste, who's going to be, on the field when they go 3 cornerbacks, who's a rookie. He's a 3rd round pick out of Minnesota. He's a guy who they think a lot of. I think you'll see him, flourish as a rookie. on the defensive side of the ball for this team. And, I think offensively, people I think know who all the guys are. Could be another step up for Terry McLaurin, another step up for Logan Thomas. And obviously, like I mentioned, the real dark horse is Patterson if something were to happen to Gibson. But, I think those would be the guys that would be surprising. And, I think most everybody else is pretty well known, and people are just kind of expecting them to take that next step.
So with Fitzpatrick taking over as the quarterback, Gibson coming back as the number one running back, improvements on the wide receiver skill set, one of the best defenses in the National Football League. Scott, can this team repeat as NFC East champions?
Yeah, I think they can. I think a lot of people pick Dallas. I understand that. Dak Prescott is, one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. He appears to be healthy now. I doubt Ezekiel Elliott is going to be as bad as he was. And he wasn't even bad last year. He was just mediocre, which you're not used to. You're used to him being an elite running back. He wasn't elite last year. I think that was just a aberration. I don't expect him to be that bad again. But their defense, they got a long way to go from where they were last year. They did add some good personnel. I love Micah Parsons. I was sick to see them go to the Cowboys. After taking the year off at Penn State, he looks like the real deal in preseason, like he did in college. So that's the good step for them. But they still have a lot of areas in that defense that are very questionable. And for whatever reason, that organization it always seems to come up short when it comes to living up to the hype. No matter who's been on the roster really since their last Super Bowl. It's just every year they're supposed to do something, they don't do it. Giants, to me, are the interesting team in the division. Their defense was really unsung last year, but they were very good, at times as good as Washington's. And, they got Saquon Barkley back now. He's not probably going to be full strength right away. It really comes down to how does Daniel Jones play. Like Daniel Jones looked horrendous, obviously, in their last preseason game. But look, as a Washington person, I see this guy come in and light up Washington every time he plays him. So I'm like, if that guy ever showed up like on, a consistent basis, they could be really good. So they're interesting. I kind of think Eagles are out of the equation this year. I don't expect much of anything from them. They got a lot of question marks. But so to answer your question, I think Washington, they're still in a good position here. It's just a lot about their offense. They have a tough schedule. Everybody thinks they have a tough schedule when the season starts, but they really do play like the A-list of quarterbacks. I think getting off to a good start would be important if they can win the first game against the Chargers at home, and then they've got the Giants on a short week on Thursday night. I think coming out of that 2-0 before heading to Buffalo, that would be ideal. If not, that adds a little bit of difficulty to your gig, to what you need to do, because you got to get Buffalo looks to be really good again this season. So that's good. That's going to be a challenge. But I think they should feel like they can win the division. How many wins is that? Like they won 7-9. That's not going to cut it. Plus we have a 17-game schedule now. I think you got to win 10 games and you got to be at least 10-7 probably to win this division. So I think they should feel like they could do that, if not better, if they can play smart on offense and the defense, takes that next step.
All right, Scott, before I let you go, how can our listeners keep in touch with you on social media, listen to some of your shows, and keep connected with all things Scott Jackson?
I appreciate that. Jackson Sports on Twitter. I'm on 106.7 from time to time, filling in, doing shows, hosting. But, if you keep my Twitter, you can find all that stuff out. And obviously, after every Washington football game, I'll be on the air with Fred Smoot talking about what happened for 2 hours, good, bad, or indifferent. We're there no matter what happens. So that'll be 17 big ones this year.
Awesome. Well, Scott, thank you very much for taking the time later to join me on the Alec Walt Show.
Thanks, Alec. Anytime.
All right, well, that's it for this episode of the Alec Walt Show. I'm Alec Walt alongside Scott Jackson. What do you think of the Washington football team in 2021? Feel free to comment that below. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Down the Block Sports for more of my exclusive content. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we will see you very soon.